Reggie Littlejohn, could you please summarize what are the main threats and problems with World Health Organization's new pandemic treaty and international health regulations?
Well, yes, but before I do that, I would like to say I'm very pleased to be in Estonia because I have an Estonia piano. So in my opinion, it's the most beautiful piano in the world, and I was able to actually meet Indrek Lowell, who made the piano. And so anyway, I love Estonia, I love the piano. So in terms of the World Health Organization and the main threats from the pandemic treaty and the international health regulations, there are two instruments that are being voted on at the end of this month, just in a few weeks. That's the pandemic treaty, the amendments to the international health regulations. And these instruments are changing constantly. They just came out with new drafts a couple of weeks ago. And people say, oh, well, it's not as bad as it was before, but there's still really big problems in these drafts. So, for example, there is still the One Health approach in the pandemic treaty. And what the One Health approach does is it balances human health and animal health and the environment. So what that means is human health is not the most important. It just has to be balanced against animal health and the environment. And so that means that your life, my life, our children's lives, our loved ones' lives are equal to that of a cockroach or a rat or a plant of some sort. It's a balancing. So that's a big problem. And not only that, but what this does is it gives the World Health Organization the pretext to surveil every aspect of life on Earth. They get to surveil human health, animal health, and plant health. And so how are they going to do that with respect to human health? They're going to do it with digital IDs. And if you go on the World Economic Forum website, you can see all the things that the digital ID will do. Digital ID is something that can be used to control you in terms of it's connected to you'll need it to collect health benefits, to open a bank account, to pay your taxes, to travel, to have a social media account, so that if you step out of line, if you, for example, refuse to get vaccinated, or if you criticize the World Health Organization or the government on social media, they can control you through these digital IDs. And also, under One Health, anything that has anything to do with health, meaning the economy, meaning depression, meaning and gun violence, they have all of this under their purview. So One Health is a way for the entire all of sort of human existence to come under the direction of the World Health Organization, and the pandemic treaty does not specify how they're going to enforce this. So they say here that the dimensions of the One Health approach shall be further defined in an instrument that is created in the future. So if you vote for the pandemic treaty, you're voting for an instrument that will be created in the future. So another problem is in the pandemic treaty is the Conference of the Parties. So the Conference of the Parties is a new organization that they're setting up that will have the ability to amend the treaty. So the treaty has to go through a ratification process, but it establishes the Conference of the Party. And if they change the treaty, it doesn't say it has to go through a ratification process. It's just like a blank check for the Conference of the Parties. It's uncontrollable. Then they have this thing called the PABS system, Pathogen Sharing and Benefit System, where they will where countries are paid basically to discover pathogens, and then they share them with the World Health Organization. And so what's to stop some bad actor, someone from either leaking it from a lab or releasing it deliberately? I don't see, to me, this is a crazy thing to do, to give people an incentive to find pathogens, even to make them through gain of function, to make them into more virulent pathogens, to share them, and then if they get leaked from the lab, then we're into another pandemic. This is a way of keeping big pharma in business, basically, because they'll have a constant stream of pandemics, and they'll be pushing vaccinations. And by the way, the PABS system also, they don't have the details. They say that the details will be worked out in a future instrument. Something else that is important to understand is that major funders of the World Health Organization are big pharma through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, through Gavi. And so we're in a situation where the World Health Organization is going to be telling us whether or not we should have vaccines, and yet they are funded by people or organizations that will benefit greatly, that will make lots and lots of money through these vaccines. That's a conflict of interest. So then there's the international health regulations. And the international health regulations, one of the things that is a great concern there is that they have in Annex number 1 on page 47, censorship of dissenting views. I mean, they don't call it that, but what they call it is each party shall develop core capacities for surveillance, and they don't say of whom or what, and risk communication, including countering misinformation and disinformation. So how are they going to count? First of all, what is misinformation and disinformation? They don't define it. I think it's going to be any dissenting opinion that disagrees with the World Health Organization or with the with the government, and they're going to counter it, no doubt, through censorship. And the way they're going to censorship is through surveillance. They're going to be surveilling our social media accounts to see if we say anything that's against them. So what can people do? The thing that I am really pushing is that the international health regulations, it's not lawful to vote on them in 2 weeks from now. There's something called Article 55 of the international health regulations that says that they had to submit all of the final regulations that were going to be voted on 4 months in advance. And that deadline passed on January 27th of this year. And now we're just weeks ahead, and they're continuing to negotiate these things. They don't even have the final drafts yet. And the world is supposed to have 4 months to consider these things, and we don't have it, so we can't vote on these. And so we are asking the Prime Minister of Estonia or the Estonian Parliament, the representative of Estonia to the World Health Organization, to take a position that these amendments and the pandemic treaty cannot be voted on at this World Health Assembly. It has to wait to the next one.
Well, there has been some opinions that how could an international body which doesn't have a jurisdiction over its member states pose a direct threat to the sovereignty and independence of countries, like WHO to direct member states?
Okay, well, first of all, the word shall is used over 300 times in the amendments, and it's used over 100 times in the pandemic treaty. Shall means that it's a requirement, and the World Health Organization itself has come out and said these are legally binding documents. Now, the thing is that if a country disagrees and decides to defund or withdraw from the World Health Organization, then it would be hard for the World Health Organization to force its will on them. But if the country is agreeing with it, like, for example, in the United States right now, let's say that President Trump was reelected and he withdrew us from the World Health Organization. It would be very hard for them to force the United States to do anything. But with President Biden, he's all behind it. He completely agrees with it, and he's doing what the World Health Organization asks. So, you have to have local resistance. Each country has to build their own resistance to this to make sure that it doesn't happen in their country.
What is the current state of these treaties right now? We know that by the end of May there should be an international meeting in order to ratify those treaties. What do you think will be the outcome of these meetings?
Well, it depends on how much resistance there is. So the World Health Organization and the Biden administration are really pushing to get these done now. And I don't know why they're pushing so hard, other than if they are worried maybe that a different administration might be elected in the United States that will oppose these, so they're pushing them through now. Or maybe, they all seem so very confident that there's going to be another pandemic soon. Maybe they want to have these instruments in place before they have another pandemic. So our goal is to resist by delaying that vote. Now, I should mention that another document has just been floated, called a resolution. It's just in draft form. But I believe that the World Health Organization is worried that the pandemic treaty is not going to pass. And so this resolution, if countries sign the resolution, they are resolving to sign a pandemic treaty when it comes out. And then also the two most controversial elements of the pandemic treaty are the pathogen sharing system and the One Health. So this resolution sets up separate working groups to come out with the details of those. And I wonder why they're doing that. Are they doing it because they have seen where the resistance is inside of the World Health Organization, and they are trying to create new committees where they will pick the members very carefully to make sure there aren't any resistors on those committees that are coming out and working out the details? But I think that this resolution is something, if they bring it up, that should be resisted as well. It should not be like, we won't vote for the treaty, but we'll vote for the resolution. The resolution is just as bad as the treaty.
What about the United States? How is the resistance to all those projects are going there?
Well, we had a very, very exciting development in the last week, which is that 49 U.S. senators, okay, so that's all of the Republican senators in the United States Senate, signed a letter to the World Health Organization saying that there are major issues with the treaty, but most importantly, that they have violated their own rules by trying to ram the international health regulations and the treaty through without giving enough, the 4 months notice that is required. And so this letter from the senators demands that the Biden administration either not take the position that they're not going to support a vote on these instruments at this World Health Assembly, or if they fail to do that, that the Senate is demanding that they have to go through the advice and consent of the Senate. And I would just mention that the World Health Organization has been historically refusing to call these a treaty because I think they don't want them to have to go through the treaty ratification process. And so our Senate says these are treaties, they have to go through the Senate ratification process. And the way that this arose, I believe, is that our group, the Sovereignty Coalition, and other groups in the United States have been contacting the grassroots people and saying, write your senators, call your senators, tell them you don't want this, tell them that they need to delay the vote. And people did that. We had hundreds of thousands of actions on that. And so that's the way the Senate was able to hear our voices and then take this action. Very startling and stunning action.
Are there any political lines also in the United States, Republicans, Democrats, who are opposing or not this treaty?
It's very clear. This vote went straight down party lines. It was 49 Republican senators that voted for it. None of the Democrats voted for it. Where are the Democrats? Why are they making this a partisan issue? This should not be. This is not a left versus right issue. This is a freedom versus slavery issue. This is a good versus evil issue. And the Democrats and the left needs to step up to the plate if they care about human freedom.
Thank you, Ms. Littlejohn, for this interview.
Thank you very much for having me.